this presentation series is been put on through the Idaho Trails Association. We call this our Trail Master series, and typically this is a presentation series that occurs in kind of the off-season months, fall to spring, at the REI in Boise in their stockroom. But because of the coronavirus and social distancing, we can't do that right now. So we took it to the web, which actually I think works out really well for us because a lot of members don't live in the Boise area and can't make it. But then also we get to engage with people who aren't even members, so they can get an idea of what Idaho Trails Association is all about and get to be a part of some of these cool presentations that we do anyways. So. Usually I start the presentation by showing a little video that kind of highlights the cool work that the Idaho Trails Association does, but that doesn't translate very well over a Zoom meeting. So I'm just going to say, go out to YouTube, look for the Idaho Trails Association, and you'll find a number of great videos that kind of give you a glimpse into what we do, but also some of our past recorded presentations. So there's some good information about personal locator beacons, leave no trace, having to do with like outdoor apps for your smartphone. And if you become a subscriber, each time a new video is added, you'll be notified by email. So you'll get to keep up on what presentations have been done or cool new promo videos we've done without having to check back. And I just wanted to let you all know that if you are outdoor Idaho fans, on May 14th, they're going to be premiering their Trailblazers series, and the Idaho Trails Association was a part of that, as well as a number of other groups that do trail work across the state of Idaho. I think it's going to be a really good show. There's a link here to more information, or I'm sure if you just Google Outdoor Idaho Trailblazers, you're going to find information about that, but I suggest putting that on your calendars. And then also, if you aren't aware, Idaho Gives is happening right now. If you don't know what Idaho Gives is, it's a statewide campaign helping to raise money for nonprofits across the state of Idaho. Typically, this is a one-day affair, but because of what's happening with coronavirus and knowing that a lot of nonprofits are going to be needing extra resources, they've actually extended it for 2 weeks. Idaho Trails Association does have an Idaho Gives campaign right now, and we are trying to raise money for our youth program. It's a very new program for us, and we've had just a couple of trips, but they've been really rewarding, and we're trying to increase that program so that we can have, up to 8 trips over the next few years. And any money that is donated is up to a certain point, I believe it's $10,000, will be matched due to a challenge grant. So if you are so inclined, I do encourage you to donate if you can, or just go out to the Idaho Gives website and look at all of the different charities and nonprofits that are seeking funding right now. I'm sure there's something that could use a little bit of help and something that you can get behind. And also right now, if you do donate $100 or more, you will get some cool swag. You can either choose from a cup or our stainless steel cup or our cool new t-shirt. This year is our 10-year anniversary, and so that swag in particular marks that occasion for us. So just to give you an idea, some background on the trails in Idaho, especially non-motorized trails. This is just a quote coming directly from a policy analyst group article that was put out by the University of Idaho a couple of years back, basically saying, without additional funding, some of our non-motorized trails are probably just going to disappear and definitely going to decline because they're falling into disrepair. And so there are organizations like the Idaho Trails Association, the Silver Bitterroot Frank Church Foundation, Youth Conservation Corps, and then just local working groups who work on trails that are really trying to augment the work that the Forest Service used to be able to do with more money and resources and are no longer able to kind of use just a volunteer base to keep some of those trails open. The Idaho Trails Association was founded in 2010. We would really, really like to have a 10-year anniversary party this year. I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but when we can all get back together, I'm sure we'll have a big blowout of some kind for all of our volunteers and people who are curious about ITA to come and enjoy. And we really do want to promote the continued enjoyment of Idaho's hiking trails, and we do this in a number of ways. Firstly, through stewardship, taking care of the trails, and we do this primarily through trail maintenance projects. And we keep the tradition alive by using traditional trail maintenance tools like Pulaski's and crosscut saws, providing education about the resources, and then just providing general education on how to respectfully enjoy the resources, like with programs like the Trailmaster series, and then through preservation and advocacy, advocating for our public lands and our non-motorized trails. We also have started in the past few years to do trail monitoring and resource monitoring in wilderness areas, and that's becoming a larger program for us as well. So as you can see, over the last 10 years, the amount of work we have done has pretty much increased by a factor of 10, and I attribute a lot of that to our current executive director, Jeff Halligan. He has done some really awesome things for our organization, and we have grown leaps and bounds over the last few years. And as of this year, we were going to have probably about 40 different projects on our schedule, which is a lot for an organization that only has 3 full-time paid staff members. We also have a very active board and some really amazing volunteers to help us get that work done. If you're interested in helping the Idaho Trails Association, I recommend becoming a member, and really that just means signing up to become a member and giving us some sort of monetary donation, and really that's whatever you're comfortable with. And then getting out on the trail with us by signing up for a trail project or a monitoring project. We have a lot of different options. I know this is really challenging because we don't exactly know when we're going to get back out on the trail, but I do suggest going out, looking at our calendar and seeing if anything piques your interest, and then just keep checking back to see if we're going to be able to go out on those. We have some single day, overnight weekend. We have a women's only program where we do women only weekends. Those are really fun. It's a really encouraging environment for women to come out and learn about trail maintenance without some potentially added pressures. And then also, like we talked about, the youth program, that is also a fledgling program that we really hope will take off over the next few years. And we focus on getting at-risk high school age kids out, working together, learning how to be leaders and have an appreciation for our awesome resources, and then just be an advocate for our resources and our public lands. And if you're not really into doing trail maintenance, we also have the monitoring program where if you're a big hiker, these are the projects for you, because you basically get to go on a multi-day backpacking trip where you're collecting data about either trails or use site information, and they're in wilderness areas, so you get to see some really, really cool country. All right, so that is all I have about the Idaho Trails Association. If you want to find out more information about us, definitely Google us. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We have a website, idahotrailsassociation.org, and we're always happy to answer any questions. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie. Let's see. All right, Carrie, I am off, so I'm going to let you share your screen.
So, hi, thank you. Hi, I'm Carrie. I am a IIN certified health coach, which really just means that I've studied hundreds of dietary theories, and I work with my clients to help them choose and follow through on their goals, because it's not just about what you eat. There's all sorts of, everything goes involved into being healthy and living a healthy lifestyle. Your relationships, your work, spirituality, everything else. So I kind of do that. I met Pam last year, as she mentioned, a women's only weekend. And ladies, I suggest you look into that for sure. It's so much fun. And like she said, it was really empowering. It was just a quick little weekend where we went up to a trail and restored it after some beavers had made a dam and kind of caused some flooding. But it was just really good to be around a really good group of like-minded women who just really cared about the trails. So after that, I kind of chatted with Pam a little bit and just told her, a little bit about my coaching. And really, honestly, it boils down to, I just love food and I like talking about food. I love hiking and backpacking and just getting out in nature. So I asked her if there was ever a chance I could talk, and here we are. So I do have to preface it with saying I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian. So I don't really get into a lot of the nuts and bolts about, how much you weigh and how many calories you should consume per day, or how many grams of protein you should consume. I don't really even do the numbers thing in my own personal life. I kind of work on eating intuitively, just kind of seeing how my body feels with foods and kind of adjusting that. But there are, a few guidelines that you probably should follow, especially when you're out backpacking, because you're exerting so much more energy when you're out and about. So that's kind of what I'm going to go over a little bit today about the macronutrients. I basically cleared out my pantry and have it on my kitchen counter here. And so I'm going to just go through some of the foods and give some ideas on some different kinds of recipes. Because I know that the prepackaged meals, well, they're cool, right? Like you go and it feels, I don't know, it almost feels like more real, like you're really getting ready to go backpacking when you go to the store, you go to REI or whatever and pick up some of those up. But sometimes there, are additives in there, or just people have some allergies or some insensitivities. There can be wheat and gluten in those. There can be dairy oftentimes in those. And it's not a time where if you don't eat dairy, where you want to have one and you're like, oh, it's just a little bit, it'll be fine. No. Out on the trails is not where you want to have an upset stomach and not be feeling well. So that's just kind of I just have some ideas on some of that. I'll go through some of the recipes. I'll show you how I package them all up to be organized for the trail, so I'm not like digging through my bag too often. And I'll show you my little cook stove as well. I'll stop a few times too and if there's any questions, if you guys want to enter them in the chat, Pam will go through those and let me know if there's any questions. So we'll take some breaks, and if you have any questions, as you can probably tell already, I love to talk, so just ask away. I did kind of focus this on plant-based. That's actually kind of my specialty with my health coaching. I actually started studying it for my own dietary needs, and just really fell in love with some of the concepts, and really just plant-based. It's basically, you can think of it in the simple terms as it's basically vegan lifestyle. No animal products are consumed. But there's a bigger emphasis on the nutritional piece of it, because in all technicality, Twizzlers could be vegan, but sometimes probably not the best and healthiest choice for you. So but don't turn off if you just said that you heard that I was going to go through plant-based. I'll chat about some meat options and stuff too. I just really think that out of all those dietary theories, the main concept in probably all of them is vegetables. We could all use a little bit more vegetables in our diets. And so where things like, tuna pouches and chicken pouches and, salamis and some of those meats are readily available, I really hone in on the creativity piece with vegetables and fruits and some other things to get a well-rounded meal. So you've probably heard everybody, that one of the latest things too, and it's not a new thing, it's a big thing. It's counting your macros, your macronutrients. Your macros are your carbs, protein, and fat. And anytime you pick up a package of anything, you're going to see your fats, your carbs, and your proteins on the back, and they're bold. That's your macros. So I believe that every meal really should have each of those: carbs, protein, and fat. So I'm going to kind of go through how to choose your carbs, pick your protein, and find your fats. You probably just got really scared because I said the carbs and I said fats, they're not scary things. Our body really, really needs them, especially when you're out on the trails for a long time. You're exerting so much more energy. You know, you're carrying your heavy pack. You know, and you have to be alert too with what your surroundings are. And so having all three of those in every meal is just really important. And I'll kind of go through some of those things with you. So like I said, I emptied my pantry. I am going to start with kind of going through some of the carbs and give you some ideas for each of those. Like Pam said, in the presentation that I have, it goes through those in details and it has some recipes. So when you registered, you'll get that in your email with that presentation, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about as well. And so, yeah, I think carbs, choosing your carbs, I think it really is kind of the foundation for your meals. Things very first off, like mashed potatoes, right? These are dried potatoes. The, you know, basically there's a mashed potato section, I think, at every grocery store, right? There's all those pouches of all the flavors. You really want to read the ingredients. And that's actually one thing I always tell my clients too, is don't read the package and whatever it's going to, you know, spout off and say and shout out at you. Always read the nutrition facts and always read the ingredients. A lot of those packets have dairy in them. So if it's something where you don't consume dairy regularly, like I said, I don't, and it's not something I want to have while I'm out on the trails and have an upset stomach or anything like that. So these are just good. That's just the base of your mashed potatoes. And they cook up really, really quickly with just some boiling water. And there you have mashed potatoes. From there, I mean, that's your base, right? You know, think like those, like the KFC bowls, right? And there's gravy and corn. You can get some dried mushrooms. I know that Natural Grocers, the last time I was there, in their produce section, they have this whole like roundabout display with a ton of different mushrooms. So you could always reconstitute some mushrooms and put those on top too, and some other like dried vegetables. Just make your own, you know, make a little bowl of, you know, toppings on there. You could also, even if you have like a tortilla, I think tortillas are really great to have. They're not like bread. They're not too damaging. They'll stay sturdy and hold up. You know, you can even like smear those on the inside and put a little gravy and roll it, or, you know, whichever, just being creative in that way. Also, one of my favorite tricks, especially for backpacking food, is check out the bulk food section, especially like at Winco. Their bulk food section is phenomenal. That's a few things that I'll show you today is where I got, but or that's where I got them. But they also have dehydrated shredded potatoes, so like hash browns, right? So you'll just boil your water, take those hash browns, reconstitute them. Great for breakfast, but don't just count them out there. You can definitely have those for lunch and dinner as well. So just two really good bases, your potatoes, right? Mashed potatoes and these shredded potatoes, really good bases for developing your meals. So, you know, choosing your carbs. Rice, of course, is always a good idea to take with you. In my everyday regular life at home, I have brown rice. It does take a little bit longer to cook. So minute brown rice, I'm showing you this as actually a don't do because I got it on accident, and it just takes too long to cook. It gets mushy and just not actually really done enough because it takes too long. The minute white rice is totally what I suggest. You're gonna have rice in like 5 minutes. After, you know, you pour your boiling water over it, just follow instructions on that. So yeah, don't do the brown rice. Got it on accident, do the white rice. In the handout, I actually have a whole page on like rice pilafs, and it has, I don't know, like 6 or 7 different rice seasoning combinations. Like there's curry, there's even pumpkin pie, there's, you know, an Italian seasoning. So what I suggest is taking, I'm going to skip just a little bit to some fats, coconut oil packets. So these are at Trader Joe's, and these are phenomenal little things. It's just like the little ketchup packets or whatever, but it's coconut oil. So for a little rice pilaf, I suggest cooking your rice with your boiling water, letting it set, and then in your pan, melt down your coconut oil, pour your seasoning packet over the top of that because you want your seasonings to bloom. That's where they really kind of open up and get more flavor. If you just dump it on the rice, I mean, it'll be fine. But I mean, it'll taste so much better if you just let that kind of perfume and bloom up. And then you can add in things like dried fruits, like apricots or cherries, and add your nuts and such. So there's some rice pilaf recipes in that handout that I did. Just another great way to do a complete meal. Don't use brown rice; it takes way too long. Some other quick cooking dishes. So couscous, which is actually not a pasta and kind of not a pasta. It's not a rice, it's more pasta. But they're these tiny, tiny little grains. This one, again, is just a plain one from Trader Joe's. You can get them anywhere, but this one's plain. So you could do the same kind of thing as the rice pilaf because you're basically starting with a blank slate there. This brand has some already flavored ones. And honestly, when you look at the ingredients, it's not, I can pronounce everything. That's another thing I always like. I can pronounce all of those things. So you can make your own seasoning packets, or, some of these are pretty great too, a good base. And they cook really quickly. As far as like pastas, I suggest not getting a pasta that's going to take more than 5 minutes to cook. Because honestly, if it's going to take you 5 minutes at home on your regular stove, it's going to take you a couple more minutes probably out when you're out on the trails and when you're out backpacking. Just, your stove's a little bit smaller. It could be windy. The air can be a little bit chillier and kind of cools off the water, and your stove has to work longer. But also, you don't want to be cooking something for 10, 12 minutes. You're not carrying several propane tanks with you, or the little tanks with you, so you want to kind of preserve those. So I suggest less than 5 minutes. There are a lot of times the dried pastas, not like the regular ones you get in the store, but they'll be like a homemade dried pasta. Those will cook quickly. This is a thin vermicelli. It's basically the angel hair pasta, but they're just little broken up ones. Like when you get rice-a-roni at the store, it's rice, and it's, all these little pastas and such. So these are good. Now, if you are using a poke pasta, I kind of recommend maybe double bagging it, because you don't want them poking through the bag that you have and then getting a mess everywhere. So, and yeah, a good comment there too. Yeah, the altitude definitely does affect your cooking time. So just the quicker cooking, the better for sure. Ramen, of course, right? It's always a great idea. I have a whole page of ramen ideas as well. So those are, possibilities are endless with that as well. Same kind of thing you can do like as the pilafs too, with seasonings. Just quick cooking ramens here. They have their own little packet, or you can do it on your own. My cousin, he does, one of his camping hacks is he takes his ramen, and then he also has some dehydrated refried beans, and he actually puts it all in the package together with the boiling water, seals it up, lets it set, and then it's good. So another idea is polenta or grits. Really, essentially they're the same thing. It's corn. Polenta is with a yellow corn. Grits is with a white corn. Fun fact, I used to work at Cracker Barrel back in the day, so that's kind of, I didn't know what grits were until I started working there a super long time ago. But what I did learn is there's no right or wrong toppings to put on grits. Like some people were putting their maple syrup and brown sugar and raisins, making it more of the sweet oatmeal. Some were making it savory. There's all sorts of ideas with polenta. It's just a really good base. Polenta or grits, a really good base. These are one of my favorite little things. Are these sweet potato glass noodles. If you've been to Cup Bop, this is pretty similar to what they use. There's a recipe called, it's japchae, Japchae, but they use these noodles, and just basically with some vegetables and a little soy sauce mixture, and you have like a little Asian bowl. So these are really good. You can also use like pad thai brown rice noodles. These cook up really fast and make some pad thai with. So there's a lot of ideas for your carbs. And they're not, I know, like I said, carbs, we're kind of conditioned to think carbs are scary, but we really need them. That's where our energy is coming from. And we need to have lots of energy so that our bodies can, make it the distance and break everything down. So those are some carb ideas for the basis of your meals. Now, like I said, I'm kind of going, talking about plant-based, really focusing on vegetables and stuff that's kind of grown. However, all of those things that I just mentioned, if you eat meat, that's totally fine. You can do the tuna packets or the chicken packets. Now, you might say like those might be a little bit high in sodium maybe, and you generally want to avoid those. Well, your body does need sodium, especially when you are working heavily, because you're sweating out and it's all salty, right? So you're sweating out the salts and you need to replace those. And if you're only drinking water, that's not, you want to drink lots of water, of course, but that's not always the best. How they say we always want to have electrolytes. Well, that's why we're replenishing some of that sodium. So same kind of thing, those packets, you don't eat those on like a daily, everyday basis, but when you are out backpacking and stuff, you can definitely make some of those choices. The other little trick is at Hickory Farms, they have the salamis and the cheeses. Well, those are shelf stable, right? So those are really great to take backpacking, whether you, chop them up and put them in things or slice them and have, a little meat and cheese and crackers, after a big day, just a good option as well. Just basically anything shelf stable. I have a page in the little handout as well that talks about TVP and soy curls. So TVP is the texturized vegetable protein, the soy protein. And it's dehydrated and it's little granules, and you basically reconstitute it with water. And it's a kind of like a meat replacement. It's pretty bland, which is fine, because then it allows you to add whatever seasonings you want. I actually have a sloppy Joe recipe in there, so it just seemed pretty easy because it's your ketchups and mustards and seasonings, and it's really easy to kind of put that together at home, and then you can easily make that on the trails. So a couple breads that I recommend, taking breads with you. Some, like, want to take your regular bread, it's going to get smushed and gross, but bagels are really those really hold up really well. You can use the bagels if you, let's say, cut it in half and you have pizza sauce, right? You can get pizza sauce in little packets. You could make yourself like a little pizza. Taking that and dipping it in some of your soups and using that, cutting it up for croutons. So, don't forget about the bagels. Yay, bagels. Also naan or tortillas. Those are just so good. You can, roll them up, put them in your pack. They take up hardly any space. They're super light, and you can use them for lots of things. You could spread some peanut butter on them to have, a little peanut butter and jelly action. You can use them for the savory, dipping in, mashed potatoes and gravy, or, dipping in your pastas using your naan for, any curries that you might make as well. I love making curry. Well, any day. I love making curry all the time, but especially out backpacking and such. So, so that's just kind of some carbs ideas for the base of it. And then, like I said, you want to have your carbs, your protein, and your fats. So your proteins, like I mentioned, you can definitely have your meats. You can have, tuna or chicken packets, salami, pepperoni, even your jerky, not just eating it regular, you can reconstitute it, because that's really what it is. It's dried meat. You can reconstitute it and maybe put it in some fried rice or like a little stroganoff kind of style thing. But if you are plant-based or vegan, one of the very first things people ask you is, where do you get your protein? Because you're not eating meat products or that much as a plant-based person. Maybe you still eat it every once in a while. That's what I do, every little bit. But for the most part, not every day or even every week. So there are still plenty of ways to get protein. There is protein in vegetables, nuts, beans. Two of my favorite ways to get some beans in your meals are, again, from that Winco bulk food section. This is powdered hummus. Yay, hummus. So, it's powdered. You're just going to add a little bit of boiling water. Honestly, what I would do is have the hummus, a coconut oil packet, And you have these true lemon or true lime little seasoning packets, because that's really just what they are, is they are like lemon oil, lemon juice, and they crystallize them and make them up in little packets. So these are amazing. You can add, so you have your hummus powder, little coconut oil, water to reconstitute it, little lemon, and you have some hummus. That's going to be, of course, great as a wrap with a naan or a tortilla. Make a Buddha bowl, right? You know, if you plan out your menu, you actually can do this so you can take a couple of fresh vegetables with you, maybe for your first day. I wouldn't totally recommend having, you know, keeping a bunch of carrots and celery for several days out there, but definitely your first day, you can have some carrots and celery in a pack and plan on eating that for lunch or dinner. So hummus packets or hummus powder is fantastic. Dehydrated refried beans. This one from Winco already has some seasonings in it. So same kind of thing. You're just going to reconstitute it with a little bit of water. For these recipes that, you know, you have to add some water to, it's hard to say, and you'll see that in my recipes too. It's hard to say, okay, you're going to use half a cup of this and half a cup of water, because it does vary, you know, for how long you've been boiling. You know, if you use half a cup of water and then you boil it, you're going to lose some of it. So I always suggest boiling my water and then pouring whatever I'm going to have into like a little cup or something, or my bowl, pouring the water over it, stirring, checking, maybe add a little bit more water so it doesn't get like too soupy or anything. And yeah, someone made a comment. Absolutely. You totally can you can dehydrate a bunch of this as well on your own. And I'll chat about that a little bit too, because I've kind of been experimenting with that. So nuts, you know, not just for your trail mix, right? Just, you know, not going to grab in and get it with your raisins and M&Ms. Add those into your, you know, your oatmeal in the morning. Add those into your, like your rice pilaf. With your hummus and your Buddha bowl. Definitely, there's, I mean, of course, we all know there's a million kinds, right? Almonds, pistachios, walnuts. Another little fun one is sesame seeds. Tiny little fellas, but they pack a lot of protein, and they're easy to just put in almost anything. I would even sprinkle some of this in with my hummus as well. Not only texture, but then you get just a little bit more of protein as well. Chickpeas, in the little presentation that I did, there is a recipe for a creamy golden rice, which is the foundation of the flavoring is turmeric, which is also really good. It's antioxidants, which is really good for you, especially when you're out on the trails. But I suggested making some crispy chickpeas at home ahead of time. And those are super easy. There's a million recipes out there. But the one trick I found that is the most helpful is dry them off ahead of time. I actually will lay out paper towels on my counter and have the canned beans and drain them and rinse them and then lay them out on the paper towels. And if by chance, some recipes call you to peel that outer little layer off, like the little husk off. I don't do that unless it's already almost all the way off, then I do kind of peel it off. But the biggest thing is make sure they're already pretty dry. And then you just roast them in the oven, and I got a recipe for that in there. But they're really good because they get that crunchy. They can kind of act like a crouton on something like that, the creamy golden rice. And they're just good for a snack as well, just, you know, kind of in a replacement as a nut or something. So, you know, that's kind of some protein ideas that I have. And then this one, find your fats. Yes, we need fats. Not only will it usually enhance the flavor of things, but it helps you feel satisfied and fuller for longer. You know, day-to-day life, we always promote getting your fats from the most natural source available. Of course, like avocados, coconut, everything from its natural source, olives. It's a little bit harder when you're out on the trails. So those coconut oil packets that I talked about from Trader Joe's are really good. Again, your nuts, so you're getting your protein and your fats from there. Chia seeds are amazing. Those are going to have all of your macros in it. They're going to have your fats, your carbs, and your proteins. These you can do, you know, if you get tired of oatmeal, you could do like chia seeds pudding, you know, mixing it and letting it kind of reconstitute instead of oatmeal. What I do is I actually do both. I do some oats and some chia seeds. And then that's kind of it for some fats. So flavors, and then I'll stop here in just a minute and answer like a couple questions if there are some. Just don't underestimate flavors. Salt and pepper are not really seasonings. There's a lot more out there that you can get. I have a lot of seasoning recipes in the little handout. Making them at home, what I usually do is I will make it at home and I'll put it in a little baggie, and I actually have like reusable bags for sure, but for the seasonings, I found that I like these little ones, the little plastic ones, like the little throwaway ones, a little bit better, just because then they don't really stick to the reusable ones, and because sometimes the flavor can kind of linger just a little bit. So, you know, this, and then maybe even if you have like turmeric or cinnamon, it might like discolor a little bit. So, you know, I know that, you know, in my mind, you know, I'm using these as well, but I use less of them than like I did a few years ago. So for me, you know, kind of baby steps in some of that stuff. So the seasonings in this, a friend of mine also mentioned like Tic Tac little boxes, right? Anything like that. I've seen also where people take the straws and melt one end of a straw and then take a funnel and put spices down in it and then melt the other end. As long as you label it, that's good. So just, you know, be thinking of some of those kinds of things, you know, as far as containers and taking your stuff with you. You know, I kind of mentioned dried fruits, apricots, cherries, blueberries, you know, golden raisins, craisins, all of those kinds of things. Don't ever forget about those. Those are all good in like rice pilafs, in pastas, in your oatmeals, even just a snack on, of course, but, you know, all sorts of good ideas. Even like little balsamic vinegar, this little pouch here, little container. I also always, I have this in my pantry, and this is just anytime I have like a hot sauce or a ketchup or mustard or any little condiment pack. And if I don't end up using it, I put it in here, because those are always great to have. A lot of, you know, some of the recipes that I suggest in the little handout too, use some of those things. You know, I don't generally use ketchup in my everyday life. There's lots of sugars. However, you know, same kind of thing, you know, there's a balance, right? There's like an 80-20 balance. I am going to have some, you know, ketchup packets and maybe some meals when I am out on the trails. Just, you know, you got to think of, you know, it's not only being healthy, but, you know, think of convenience as well, because you don't want to starve yourself while you're out there. You know, and you're already making other good choices. You know, I think there's a little bit of allowance and tolerance there. So that's, you know, that's a little bit about that. I'll talk about some fruits and vegetables and such too. Pam, were there, I think there was a couple of questions.
Yeah, I don't know if you can you see the questions? You just see the chat, or let me scroll through here. So, well, I was asking about vegetables. How do you incorporate vegetables? Do you like fresh, dehydrated, dried, freeze-dried?
Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah, so I actually have like a whole little section in the handout about it. So there's different kinds of your different terminology. You're going to see freeze-dried. I'll answer that question in just a sec. Let me get this out of the way. There's freeze-dried, there's dried, there's dehydrated. There's all sorts of different ways to get vegetables. In the produce, or in the bulk food section, like at Winco, there are definitely like dehydrated soup mixes with dried vegetables in them. Really just the difference between freeze-dried and the difference between dehydrated, they both have the water taken out of them. Freeze-dried is a little bit more complex of a process. You know, you don't see that we all have like a freeze-dry machine at home. That's because they're just more expensive, more a little bit spendier, like I just said that, and little bit more difficult to use. They're more commercial products, but more water is removed from them. So that's kind of why even the end product might be a little bit more expensive as a freeze-dried. However, when that process happens is they actually have more nutrients left. And so it reconstitutes a little bit more quickly than dehydrated. So if you think of, so I have actually freeze-dried strawberries right here. So like it breaks and it's crisp, right? That's freeze-dried. Whereas dried is like, like your raisins or like your apricots, right? They're going to be just a little bit more, they're like a little chewier. They don't crisp. So both really good ideas. It just really depends on what you can get. There's a lot of companies online that do dehydrated vegetables, and you can definitely get those. And they'll do mixes and all sorts of things because it's actually a really big deal for prepping. A lot of people will have that in their dry storage. So there's a lot of good companies out there that have those. As far as doing it yourself, you can totally do that. Absolutely. I actually did buy a dehydrator a couple months ago, and I've kind of been playing with it, and it's pretty fun. It is just that next kind of level of work. What I'll do is if I make like a soup or I make curry or something like that, and I have leftovers, because I always have leftovers, I actually will put that on one of the trays in the dehydrator, let it go overnight, and then the next day I have like chips of curry or soups or whatever I made. And so then I label those, put them in a bag, and then have those in a packet for a future backpacking trip. So lots of ideas for those, for vegetables, especially once you just start looking around online, you'll definitely find a lot of them. But hopefully that explains a little bit about the difference between the freeze-dried and why you might find it. But both of them are good options because essentially really you are getting vegetables. So
cool. Yeah. We also have a question about, do you have an easy fajita type seasoning to share?
Yeah, absolutely. In the packet, there's in that whole seasoning, I guess there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different seasoning packets. And because that's right, when you go to, again, the whole section at the grocery store, there's all sorts of seasoning packets. A lot of times you got to watch out because those are going to have, they could have wheat in them because wheat helps not to cake up and get like in a big clog when you open it. So you got to watch out for that if you have a wheat intolerance. Also, some of them might have a little bit of dairy, like a powdered milk or something to make creamy. I know like the pesto seasonings, that'll have a little bit of like Parmesan cheese in it. Taco seasonings, a lot of those, they'll also have MSG. So if you read anything about MSG, it's not the best thing for you and for our brains. So, you kind of want to avoid that. But yeah, I have taco seasoning. I love tacos. I actually did a whole taco blog in 2018, so that's kind of a jam. But yeah, in the packet, I have like a taco seasoning packet or a taco seasoning recipe for you. You can try that. So, and then I would get, your dehydrated onions and peppers. You can sometimes get the red and green peppers mixed together. And mushrooms too. If you eat mushrooms, like I was mentioning, those mushroom packets that you can get as well.
Cool. Leah's asking, what do you know about cricket spices? I bought a few different flavors, but have yet to look into if their nutritional protein value.
I know zero about that. That's awesome. But I will look into that too, because that totally piques my interest. So yeah, I'm not sure.
Me too. Yeah, that's cool.
And one of the questions was also talking about highly processed foods, which is a great question. And thank you for bringing it up. In my normal day-to-day life, I don't eat highly processed foods. I do eat a lot of fresh fruits and lots of fresh vegetables. It's just that's really kind of hard to get when you are out on the trails for a few days. So, that is why I did talk about, white rice. I don't normally eat white rice. However, it's not something that is necessarily an intolerance where I will have probably upset stomach or anything like that. And so I would eat that, maybe just one day while I'm out on the trails. In my mind, it's all about balance. and just kind of trying to make sure that you're doing your best, but you've got to fuel your body. So, you know, just taking, you know, a couple cucumbers with you or something like that for, you know, for a trip is just not, you know, not the best and easiest idea. So, top ramen, I don't always suggest. That one's not the best. These ramens, there's some other ones like this one, the ones I was showing, like the Thai kitchen and stuff, they're a little bit better process that they make the noodles. So yeah, so I generally try to stay away from the highly processed foods, yes, but you know, it's all about balance, so. Well, I'll get things wrapped up just a little bit. I'll kind of show, you know, how I then take this and put it all together for meals. I was showing you the bags, right, that you can find them on, like on Amazon. I'm sure you all have trusted, you know, places you can get them. They're going to be at REI, everywhere else. So I take, this is actually what I carry my food in, one of these dry sacks. Generally, I have a little bit bigger one. I don't fill it with my own food for the trip, but I have a little bit bigger one because sometimes I take other people's food at night and we share this bag, and so then we go hang it. So I always have some rope as well. So in my bag, I have everything labeled, like this is my breakfast, day 2. So this is gonna be my oats, my chia seeds. I've got some almonds, some of those freeze-dried strawberries, and a peanut butter packet in there. So the peanut butter packets help, you know, get a little bit of fat and your protein as well. You could use peanut butter powder, but that has some of the fats taken out to make the process. So, you know, your choice there. So dinner day 2, this is a rice that I was talking about. So I have in the container, I have rice. I have my little seasoning packet in here. I just have everything already handy. Like I have some sun-dried tomatoes and some apricots in there, a little coconut oil packet, my seasoning packet. I just have it all together so that I'm not completely, you know, taking my big old bag and emptying everything out and searching through trying to find something, because especially when you get to your camp for the night and you want to set up, you want to eat fast. As far as containers to cook in, I know some people are doing the cooking in the plastic bags, which is great, right? I haven't experimented enough with that to really know a lot about it, but there's tons of, you know, videos and recipes out there, people doing it, and it's a great idea because then you don't have dishes to do as well. You can use, of course, jet boil is probably the most popular one. I use this cute little thing where it just pops right on top of the canister. I actually got this about 4 or 5 years ago as kind of one of the first little stoves that I got just to kind of try it out, thinking that it would last maybe a year and then I would, you know, get something a little bit bigger. But, you know, here it is. It fits in this tiny little box, folds all up, and, you know, 5 years later, it's still working away. So I kind of love this little thing. But there's all sorts of different ways to, you know, cook the foods as well. So one suggestion, so I have these little pots that I can cook in. Always bring a pot holder because you're going to have your handles that you put on this, and your handles are over the fire, so they're going to get hot as well. And also for noise, I like the pot holder because you can put it like around your canister and pop it down in there, and it kind of helps from things rattling around a little bit. Is there some other questions there, Pam?
I'm not seeing any more, but you can definitely do a shout out. Does anybody else have any questions? You know, I've thought of that about this whole with the plastic bag meals. I'm okay like eating my cereal out of like a Ziploc bag, but I'm not sure I would eat something hot out of a Ziploc bag. I'm worried about like chemical transfer, I guess, or just even melting the bag and then like losing my meal.
Out of a meal, right? I know. Yeah, I would definitely, as with anything, right? You know, you're going to pop up your tent before you go out, right? Before you go out backpacking, you're going to pop it up and make sure you have all the stakes, right? Or not all the stakes, but all the poles and everything. It doesn't have any, you know, big holes or anything like that. You're going to roll out your sleeping bag, make sure that it's good. And Nothing's happened to it. The zipper works. Same with the food. Try out your food, try out some recipes, try out the cooking methods. That'd be the worst thing, is to get out there. Well, I mean, getting eaten by a bear would be pretty bad, but one of the worst would be, not having your food. And so, yeah, the bag thing, I don't know. I haven't tried enough with that. One thing that I did, a couple of the foods I did forget to mention, sorry, I was going so fast. I get so excited talking about food. Coconut milk powder. So again, yes, from a natural source is always going to be the best way. We just have to make our choices when we're out backpacking. Coconut milk powder. This is good to put in your oatmeal, your chia seeds in the morning. This is good to put into curries, helps make things creamy. It also has your fats in it. You can, another good thing to have just a little bit of a unique flavor are some of the seaweed chips. Now, I wouldn't necessarily, take them in this packet, of course. They're not going to stay chips once they're in your bag for very long. But once they do get kind of ground up, you can put them in rices and pastas, and they make a pretty unique flavor profile.
That's a good idea. Yeah, so we got a couple more questions here. Sarah asks, what kind of heat stove is it specifically? I think she's asking, do you know what kind of like brand, or you're a little...
No, and actually I just saw the other day the name, the style for it. I don't remember what this cute little thing is. I'm sure that there's all sorts of smart people out there that know exactly what this little thing is. But these just set up here, and then your pan sits right on top of it. I know I can look it up, and I can, get back to somebody, or just reach out to me like on Facebook or message me or something like that, and I'll get back to you on it. But I know there's a name for it. Sorry, I don't know that.
Yeah, I have something similar, and a couple people have also said mine is a MSR Pocket Rocket. It's similar to that. I'm assuming it's probably the same price point. Whisper Light is also another one somebody is mentioning. And Kendra says there are many different reusable bag brands that you can add boiling water directly into the bag to reconstitute your food. Cool. That's good to know.
Yeah. What I like about this is that we're all kind of talking about this. I've never claimed to be like a professional at this by any means. I just, like I mentioned in the very beginning, I like food, I like backpacking, I like talking. So that's kind of why I wanted to do this. And honestly, if you get one thing out of, watching this for a little bit, if you got like, oh yeah, that's an idea I could do, that just makes me happy right there. And this too, like having the discussion, right? People, oh, well, that's my idea. That's my idea. Yes, let's talk about it. Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. So we have another question. When you plan your backcountry meals, do you plan it around your protein or carbs?
Yeah, generally I'm going to go carbs first to kind of just see what my base is, but also I like variety. So I'm not going to have mashed potatoes each day. And then I probably go, okay, well, one day I'm going to have mashed potatoes, one day I'm going to have rice, one day I'm going to have noodles. Okay, well, what am I going to, that's my very bland base. Then what am I going to do? I'm going to do, I'm going to go Asian, one night with the noodles, and then, the mashed potatoes, I'll go some other. I just like to have a lot of variety. So just kind of, you can also look and think about what are some of just your regular favorite foods to eat at home, and how can you make that, what can you substitute to make it so you can make it, when you are out and about. So again, like I was talking about coconut milk powder, right? So, oh yeah, I'm not going to take a can of coconut milk with me, or, regular milk or anything like that. This is a good substitution. So, and also once we can go to the grocery stores and roam around them, just start looking at, some of those ideas and just doing some like replacements as to what will work for some of these things.
Right. Yep. Totally agree. I have gotten some of the best ideas just by finding something I'm like, I really like this. How can I incorporate this into my backcountry meal?
Yeah. And in the presentation, like the second to last page, there's there's 4 other websites, one of them being REI, and a couple others that have some other recipes. And honestly, Pinterest, Oh, I bless Pinterest. That place has, I mean, not only your regular meals for regular dinner at home, but a ton of ideas for backpacking as well. There's so many if you just look on there, and then there's a couple websites that I gave some ideas to as well.
Yeah, awesome. And I know that you have kind of it sounds like you have kind of a fondness for, playing around with different spice flavors from different cultures and stuff. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but what are some of your influences and some interesting influences that you brought in that make your meals a little bit more different and interesting?
Well, I think just being brave and being adventurous, right? I don't want, I mean, granted, when you have hiked, a ton of miles all day and lug in your backpack, almost anything will taste good. However, it's kind of a reward too, is having something that is satisfying. So yeah, I love curries. Not only do a lot of those spices, they're not just for taste, they can also be antioxidants. I mean, they can be good for, muscle and joint rehabilitation. And it's just not just for flavor on your tongue. There are a lot of those spices. And if you think back to a lot of ancient times, they used a lot of spices as medicine. And so, thinking about it in that way, you're taking care of your body after a long day with a good, warm, nutritious meal. And that's seasoned well.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. And I know that I've learned that there are things that I like to eat in my everyday life that I can't really do on the trail. And so we actually have a question that's kind of related to this a little bit, in that Stephanie says, my body tends to react negatively to having a ton of food that cooked through boiling water being added. Any tips on meals that don't require heating, cooking with hot water?
Wow, that's interesting. Gosh darn it. Let's see. I mean, if you can have nuts, you can have some peanut butters with some dehydrated vegetables, or I mean, not that sounds disgusting. I meant dehydrated fruits. And maybe wrap it in a tortilla. Do a little spread like that. And I don't know. Oh, shoot me a message, because honestly, this is one of those things that'll keep me up at night, and I'll have like a 3 a.m. thought. So make sure and shoot me a message, and I'll definitely, I'll think about that. But yeah, as someone said too, yeah, all the packets of tuna, salmon, chicken, stuff like that, those are all great as well. Those are definitely, no water added to those. You can do that.
Yeah, it's funny. Michelle says this. My sister used to do the same thing. She had a coworker who would eat ramen straight out of the bag without boiling it.
I mean, that's an option. Absolutely. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to take care of your body, because like I said, you don't want to, if you have an intolerance to it, to whatever it is, don't go thinking, oh, I can have just a little bit of it when I'm out on the trails. Because no, that's the last place that you do not want to feel well. It's just, don't risk it. So that's the thing. Know your body, know what you can eat, know what upsets you, and work around into that.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm seeing lots of kudos here too. That's cool.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I just hope you got something out of it. And again, message me if you have questions or anything like that. I like talking about food and everything. So just let me know if you have questions.
Yeah, awesome. We sure appreciate you coming on and sharing with us today. I know I took down some notes for sure. I definitely want to try those sweet potato glasses. That sounds really fun.
Oh, I love them so much. I get them at Fred Meyer, by the way. So that's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Where you get them?
Stock up real quick, but yeah, I love those things.
Yeah, and if anyone has more questions, feel free to, you can email ITA, or you can probably find Carrie on Facebook, or you can put comments on this is actually being recorded on Facebook Live as well. So if you want to add comments to that, we'll make sure things get answered. one way somebody will get back to you about this. Yeah, thanks so much, Carrie. That was really awesome. I have just a couple of announcements to make before we all leave. So again, Idaho Gives is going on. Please participate in that. And then also next week, ITA is going to be doing our digital campfire tales. So we're going to be having some seasoned volunteers and crew leaders come and share some of their experiences. And then also, if you have a story from coming out on a trip with us, we'll give you an opportunity to share those as well. That will be next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Details on our Facebook page. If you get our newsletter, you should receive something about it or have received something about it in our newsletter. So thank you all so much. And yes, for everybody who signed up, you will be getting an email probably within the week with a link to the video recording and the handout that Carrie has been mentioning.
Yep. Thanks you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yep,
Have a
see
good
you.
night, everyone.